So these are just going to be a handful of some memorable stories I've had throughout my 14 years playing in Magic tournaments, so hope you like them. But let's get out of this like drab room here and, maybe touch some grass, go outside somewhere nicer. So for our first story, me and a number of friends carpool out to a shop for their tournament. One of my buddies, let's just call him Hernando, makes it all the way to the finals. And so he's in his final game. It's down to game 3. Whoever wins this game is going to go to the Pro Tour. And unfortunately, he loses. So just absent-mindedly, I say to his opponent, like, congrats, it's just a shame that you're not going to be able to play in any more tournaments for the rest of the season. Now, some of you already know where this is going, but basically to explain, so the Magic tournament circuit is broken into seasons where, maybe from like February to May or something, that's the time that you have to compete in tournaments, and you qualify from that tournament for another tournament, like the Pro Tour or a different one, 6-9 months later. Right? And if you do qualify, you can't play in any more of the tournaments from there. So let's say, you win a tournament in February, well, then you can't play any more tournaments in March, April, May until it rolls over into the next season. So his opponent looks at me, he kind of like looks away and thinks for a second, and he goes, well, can I just concede then? And he conceded the match, which allowed my buddy Hernando to go to the Pro Tour. And the kicker to this story is, I didn't know it at the time that I made that comment, but this was actually the last tournament in the season. So our next story is taking place at a modern Grand Prix. Now, in this particular match, I am playing against Bring to Light Scapeshift, and I am playing Lantern Control, so yeah, I get it, I'm the villain, got it, let's move on from there. So, the moment I sat down to the match with this guy, things were already pretty shady. He was wearing sunglasses indoors, and all of the lands in his deck were foil, and all of the non-lands were non-foil. So already kind of sketchy to begin with, but nothing actionable, nothing that I could call a judge for. So we start playing the match, things are going okay, and I think this was before Dryad of the Elysian Grove had been printed. So his only win cons are either land a Primeval Titan or Scapeshift for Valakut and do all the normal stuff. So I set up, I have 2 Mill Rocks and Lantern, and I don't know exactly what's in his hand. I've got him down to 2 cards that I don't know about, but they can't be anything that matters because he would have played them earlier in the game. So I don't have him dead to rights at this point. I only have 2 Mill Rocks, but I'm pretty solidly set up. The only things I really have to stop him from drawing are Valakut and Scapeshift and Primeval Titan or Summoner's Pack. So it's a fair number of cards I have to go through, but I have enough mills to stop him. So he goes, end of your turn, I'm gonna fetch. So, okay, yeah, he fetches. And then I cut his deck, and without giving me any time to do anything, he goes, okay, my turn, draws a card immediately without revealing it. So, of course, I call a judge. And who responds but Toby Elliott? So Toby Elliott is basically the rules guy. He's basically the guy at the head of the rules and policy and how they're implemented. And he also happened to be the head judge for this tournament. So I explained to him what just happened, that he drew a card without revealing it, thus not giving me a chance to mill him at all. So my opponent doesn't dispute this. And so Toby goes, okay, the ruling is that it's a basically hidden card error. You get a warning, play on. I'm like, what? And because he's the head judge of the tournament, I can't appeal the ruling, so it goes through. Well, wouldn't you know it, he drew Abrupt Decay immediately. Abrupt Decay is my Lantern, and I proceed to lose the game from there. Oh well. All right, so we're out onto another tournament. We all carpool out there as usual. And I need to set the stage for what kind of judge we get at this event. So this is the kind of guy who, he wants to be everyone's buddy. He wants to be pals with everyone. And if you're not giving him that, or he senses like you're not his friend, he's gonna be biased against you. This is the kind of guy that at the beginning of the event, he stands up and announces his pronouns. Now this is a 40-year-old bald guy, self-professed father, so make of that what you will. The point is, as you might expect, this kind of a guy, not really that great of a judge. The event starts, everything seems to be working all right, then somebody asks for a judge call, and it's a ruling on how does Sundering Titans trigger work with lands. So basically, can you tap the lands for mana after the person already names all the lands they want to blow up? Now, the answer is that no, you can't. It's all part of the same trigger. You have to tap your lands in advance. He gets the ruling wrong, so I interject and I say, hey, it's actually the other way. So then the event continues. Later on, somebody raises their hand and they ask, what's the policy on having cards that aren't in your deck box, right? Now, The ruling here is that you're not allowed to have any cards that aren't a part of your deck in your deck box, but there's an exception. The exception is promo cards that were handed out at the tournament. So he tells the player you can't have any cards in your deck box that aren't part of your deck, but he doesn't specify the exception. I think the player is referring to the promo card that he has. That's what he's holding. So I just interject and I say, except for the promo card, right? That's fine. So the event continues, and some other judge call comes up. I don't remember the specifics of what it was, but he gets the ruling wrong again. So I interject, and then he goes, let me see you outside. So we walk outside, and he goes, why do you insist on arguing with everything that I say whenever I make a ruling? And I say, hey, I'm not trying to, argue with you. I'm just interjecting when I think that the ruling is incorrect, so that everybody knows what's up. And he goes, okay. I'm giving you an unsporting conduct warning, and if you keep doing it, it's going to escalate. So this is the tournament where I learned that no matter how good your intentions are, the best policy as a player in terms of you being able to actually win the tournament is to just shut up, because you get no awards for doing the right thing or making sure that the rules are being followed, unless it's your own match, obviously. But outside of that, you get no brownie points. So just shut up and don't interfere at all, because you risk starting to get warnings, game losses, etc. So for this next one, this is, in my opinion, the most ridiculous judge ruling I've ever heard of, and I experienced it myself, so let me regale you. So to set it up, I was responsible for the chain of events that lead to this, so I do have to take ownership of that. So I'm on my way to a tournament, and I'm running late. It's clear based on the GPS that there's no way I'm going to get there on time, so I call to the store, and I say, hey, I'm going to be there late. Is it still possible that I get into the tournament? But with a game lost, I say, yeah, sure, okay. So I show up, I walk in, I say, hey, it's me. I called earlier. This is what's going on. They say, okay, yeah, your opponent's right over there. Go to that table. And then, so I sit down to start playing the match. So the judge comes over and he says, hey, so, you're late. You're going to get a game loss. Yeah, okay, got it. And he goes, do you have a deck list? I say, no, I don't have a deck list written. He goes, okay, well, just play your match and then get it to me afterwards. So we start playing the game, and I win the first game. So we start going to sideboarding. So I'm technically 1-1 at this point, since I had a game loss for the first match. So then the head judge of the event, not the judge that I talked to previously, comes over and he goes, hey, so the other judge, you just informed me you don't have a deck list. And I go, yeah, but he said to just sit down and start playing. He goes, okay, let me step away for a second. So he steps away, he comes back, he says, hey, can you come over here? So I get up and he goes, okay, yeah, so you were supposed to have a deck list filled out and you didn't. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to hand you a blank deck list, and you're going to write it out in the amount of time you would have had to write it out if you had shown up on time. So you're going to get 5 minutes, and I'm going to time you. And if you can write down your deck list in that time, then you can keep playing. Otherwise, you're going to lose the game. What? So I actually had my deck list memorized. So I start writing as fast as I can. Just I'm not worried about penmanship. I'm just writing out all the cards, and the quantities as quickly as possible. I get about 2/3 of the way done. The judge goes, stop, you're out of time. You're going to get a game loss. Just absolutely bewildered. I think I went along with it just because of how bewildered I was by what the ruling is. And the kicker to this is I had walked in and started playing. I hadn't even paid the store yet. So I could have just walked out without paying them, but I felt like that might be kind of scummy. So I did actually go up and pay the store for my entry, played my next match, proceeded to lose immediately. 0-2 drop, I'm out. Yeah, I caused the situation in the first place by being late, but I still think that's just absolutely insane judge ruling. All right, so for this last story, me and a bunch of buds, again, we carpool out to a shop to play in a tournament, and one of our buddies is a guy who owns his own game store. So we get there, and he realizes he forgot his deck. Not some cards, or he forgot his sideboard, he forgot his whole deck. And we drove an hour and a half out to this shop, so there's no way that he can turn back and get it. The tournament's starting in 10 minutes. So he's got to figure out, okay, what do I do now? I guess he just can't play in the tournament, right? Well, this guy runs a pretty good shop. He's pretty well known in the community, and people like the shop. And so a number of people there, they either knew him or they'd heard of him before. And so people just spontaneously start going hey, I'll donate this to you, I'll donate this to you. I'll let you borrow this card and this card to put your deck together. And this is a modern tournament. So he wanted to play Jund, like Tarmogoyf, Thoughtseize, Jund. And there were enough people there who, one, had all the cards he wanted, and two, were willing to let him borrow them for the tournament. People are lending him, like, Expedition Shocklands. This is how much they trust and like this guy. So I thought this was just a really great story about, like, how the community can be this great thing every now and then. And that is going to do it. Hope you enjoyed those stories. If you've got your own accounts from your various Magic tournaments you've played in over the years, whether those are positive or negative, you can leave them down in the comments, and I'll see you next time.